Here's something that will probably upset you. When you're not around, she's not thinking about you the way you hope. In fact, what's happening in her mind during your absence has almost nothing to do with missing you, and everything to do with evaluating whether you're real. Most men believe that being present, being available, being consistent will make a woman value them more. But here's the uncomfortable truth. The more present you are, the less she feels your presence. The more available you become, the less valuable your attention feels. It's not fair, but it's real. And if you've ever felt like the more effort you put in, the more distant she became, you already know I'm telling the truth. Look, by the end of this conversation, you'll understand three things. First, what actually goes through her mind when you're gone. Not romance, but raw evaluation. Second, why your behavior in private shapes her feelings more than anything you do in public. And third, how to build yourself so powerfully that your absence becomes the most attractive thing about you. This isn't about manipulation. This is about becoming a man who doesn't need constant validation to feel whole. Because once you understand this, you'll stop wondering where you stand with her, and you'll start building a life so solid that it doesn't matter. But first, let me tell you why most men fail this without even knowing it. When you're not there, she's not wondering, does he miss me? She's wondering something far more important. Is he who he said he was? Think about it. When you're absent, her mind starts working. What is he doing right now? Is he still focused? Is he with someone else? Did I matter to him at all? These aren't neurotic questions. They're instincts that have kept women safe for thousands of years. She's not being cruel. She's being careful. And honestly, can you blame her? Here's where most men get it completely wrong. They think constant contact builds trust. More texts, more calls, more just checking in. But it doesn't build trust. It builds something else entirely. Dependency. When you're always texting, always checking in, always available, you remove her need to wonder. And when she stops wondering, she stops valuing. Because you've proven something to her without realizing it. You've proven that your world revolves around her. And no woman respects a man whose world is smaller than hers. She just doesn't. But when you step back, not in anger, not as some game, but because you have genuine purpose in your life, something interesting happens. Suddenly, she's the one seeking validation. She's the one wondering if she still matters to you. And that shift right there, that's not power over her. That's power over yourself. And women feel that difference immediately. I've watched this pattern destroy good men over and over. They meet a woman, things start well, connection feels real, but slowly, without noticing, they start bending their schedule, their habits, their identity, all to keep her attention. And what happens? She pulls away, not because she's a bad person, but because she's lost respect. She sees a man who doesn't respect his own time, his own mission, his own boundaries. And once that respect is gone, attraction follows right behind it. Here's the simple rule. If your absence makes her doubt you, you weren't being real. You were performing. And women always know the difference. But here's what's even more powerful than stepping back. It's what happens when you stay silent. Have you ever noticed that the moment you stop chasing, she starts reaching out? That's not coincidence. That's how human psychology works. We live in a world where everyone explains everything. Everyone overshares. Everyone needs to be heard. But silence, real silence, that's rare. And rare is valuable. When you don't double text, when you don't demand explanations, when you can sit with discomfort without filling it with words, you signal something most men can't. Self-control. Here's what happens in her mind when you go silent after she's been distant. Her mind doesn't relax. It races. Why isn't he chasing? Did I push too far? Is he talking to someone else? Did I lose him? These questions create emotional investment, not because you're playing games, but because you've removed the one thing she expected. Your reaction. Women test through provocation. A cold reply here, a canceled plan there, sudden distance. Most men fail by reacting immediately, explaining, apologizing, chasing, but the man who responds with calm silence, he passes because he's shown that his emotions aren't controlled by her mood. And that right there is the foundation of respect. Now, silence doesn't mean you never speak. It means when you speak, it carries weight. The man who talks constantly has no impact. His words become noise. But the man who speaks rarely, who chooses his words carefully, every sentence lands. This applies to texting, to conflict, to everything. When you stop filling every silence, your words start to matter. And women notice. They feel the difference between a man who needs to convince and a man who simply states the truth. But here's the thing, and this is critical. Silence only works if you're doing something with it. And that brings me to the most misunderstood part of all this. Here's the trap most men fall into. You can pull back from her, go silent, create distance, and still lose her respect. How is that possible? Because absence without purpose is just hiding, and women can sense fear. When you're not around, she's asking herself a question. What is he building? If the answer is nothing, if you're just sitting at home waiting for her to text, if your absence is empty, she knows. Women are far more perceptive than most men realize. But if you're genuinely focused on something meaningful, your work, your growth, your mission, she feels that too, even from a distance. Let me be direct with you. A man who maintains his routine, who trains his body, who advances his career, who builds something larger than himself, that man's absence has weight. Why? Because his life has substance. He's not available because he's busy creating value. And women are naturally drawn to men who create value, not men who wait around hoping to receive it. Ask yourself right now and be honest. If she disappeared tomorrow, would your life collapse? Would your routine fall apart? Would you lose your sense of direction? If the answer is yes, you're not ready for a real relationship. You're looking for someone to complete you. And that's not attractive. That's actually terrifying to a woman. You cannot build attraction on dependency. You can only build it on completion. A woman wants to join a man who's already going somewhere, not become his reason for going. When she's around men who are directionless, who have time for everything, who adjust their entire world to accommodate her, she feels pressure. The pressure of being someone's entire purpose. But when she's around a man who has focus, who makes time for her but doesn't revolve around her, she feels something different. Freedom. The freedom to choose him without feeling responsible for his happiness. Now, here's where it gets uncomfortable. Because even when you do all this right, she'll still test you in a way that breaks most men. You've felt this before. Everything's fine. Then suddenly, she's distant, cold, unresponsive, and your first instinct is panic. What did I do wrong? How do I fix this? But that panic, that's exactly what she's measuring. When a woman withdraws, she's not always leaving. She's watching. She wants to see if you need her to feel stable. If you do, if you start chasing, explaining, apologizing for things you didn't do, you fail the test. Because she learns something about you. She learns that she can shake your foundation. And no woman wants to be with a man whose foundation can be shaken. Most men, when faced with her distance, collapse. They double text. They call repeatedly. They demand to know what's wrong. And every action says the same thing. I need you to be okay for me to be okay. That's not strength. That's dependency. And dependency ends attraction faster than almost anything else. Here's what you do instead. Nothing. Not in anger, not to punish her, but because you genuinely have a life that continues with or without her immediate presence. When she pulls back, you tighten your focus. You go harder at the gym, you advance your projects, you spend time with people who value you, not to make her jealous, but because your life doesn't pause when she's distant, and that sends the most powerful message possible. I'm not waiting for you to decide my worth. When she looks back, and she will, what does she see? If she sees panic, if she sees you unraveling, she confirms her doubts about you. But if she sees progress, if she sees a man who didn't break when she left, who became stronger in her absence, that's when respect returns. And with respect comes genuine attraction. Let me ask you something that should make you think. If she didn't reply for 2 days, would your discipline improve or disappear? That question reveals everything. Because the man whose life falls apart in her absence was never strong to begin with. He was just performing strength while she was watching. But even if you pass that test, there's one final evaluation she's running that most men never even notice. Here's a question that might make you uncomfortable. Are you the same man in private that you are in public? Because she's asking that question. and she's very, very good at finding the answer. When you're not around, she's replaying every interaction in her mind, every claim you made, every standard you set, and she's comparing them. Does he actually live by what he says? Does his behavior match his words when I'm not there to see? If you claim to value discipline, but skip your workouts when she's not watching, she knows. If you talk about loyalty, but entertain attention from others, she feels it. Women are incredibly perceptive about inconsistency. It registers at a level deeper than logic. They might not consciously think he's being fake, but they'll feel something's off. And that feeling accumulates over time until it becomes distance you can't bridge. The man she respects is the man who's the same whether she's watching or not. That's not performance. That's integrity. And integrity is what builds lasting attraction. Here's what it comes down to. If she disappeared completely tomorrow, who would you be? Would your identity collapse? Would your routine fall apart? Or would you continue becoming the man you're meant to be? Because if your identity is tied to her approval, she feels that weight. And that weight becomes pressure. And pressure ends attraction. Women want to be with men they could leave. Not because they want to leave, but because they want to know they're choosing to stay. When you're so complete, so grounded in yourself that you'd be okay without her, paradoxically, that's when she doesn't want to be without you. Imagine this for a moment. You wake up tomorrow and you don't check her messages first. You check your purpose. You train your body not to impress anyone, but because discipline is who you are. You build your career not for validation, but because you're compelled to create value. And when she reaches out, you respond, but from a place of fullness, not neediness. That's the man she can't stop thinking about. Not because he's playing games, but because he's real. And here's what happens when you become that man. Let me bring this together. What a woman feels when you're not around is not romance. It's evaluation. She's asking, is he real? Is he consistent? Can I respect him? Does his life have substance beyond me? And your absence is the arena where those questions get answered. You have two choices here. Path 1, continue seeking validation. Continue wondering where you stand. Continue building your identity around her approval. That path leads to anxiety, neediness, and eventually losing her respect. Path 2, build yourself so completely that your absence speaks louder than your presence. Build a life so full of purpose that she wants to be part of it, not the center of it. That path leads to genuine respect, real attraction, and the kind of relationship where both people choose each other freely. Here's what happens on path 2. You wake up and your first thought isn't about her. It's about your mission. You work on yourself not to win her back, but because that's who you are now. And when she sees that, when she realizes you're not waiting around, you're not performing, you're just becoming more, something shifts in her. She stops testing. She stops pulling back. Because she's found what she was looking for all along, a man who doesn't need her to be whole, but chooses her anyway. Tomorrow morning, do this. Before you check her messages, check your purpose. Write down one thing you're building that has nothing to do with her. Then live that day as if your value doesn't depend on her response. That's the first step. That's how you start. If this resonated with you, if you recognized yourself in this, and you want to break free from needing validation, subscribe to Charisma. We're building a community of men who understand that the quality of your relationships is determined by the quality of your character. Not tactics, not manipulation, just real, uncomfortable growth. Because you're not here to convince anyone of your value. You're here to build it so undeniably that it speaks for itself. Remember this, your absence only has power if your presence has purpose. Build the purpose first, everything else follows.